Hello, welcome to today's talk. In today's video, what I'm going to do is to look at human memory and look at amnesia through the eyes of a particular film that is quite well known called Memento. It's a well-known Hollywood film, and what I'm going to do is to take a neuropsychologist perspective by watching the film here on the side with my friend Frank. And what we're going to do is let you know whether we think that what's shown in the film is correct or not. So, let's go to the movies.
It's just an anonymous room. There's nothing in the drawers. Let you look anyway. Nothing except the Gideon Bible, which I, of course, read religiously. You know who you are, and you know kind of all about yourself. But just for day-to-day stuff, notes are really useful. Sammy Jenkins had the same problem, but he really had no system. He wrote himself a ridiculous amount of notes, but he'd get them all mixed up. You really do need a system if you're gonna make it work.
So in this scene, the character is talking about the fact that he can't remember things and he needs to have a system to write things down to remember whether they happened or not. And this is actually somewhat realistic, because when you think about it, what you're doing when you remember something, like when you try to remember this video, you're making a record which is going inside your brain, inside your memory system. Now, he can't do that because there's something wrong with his memory system, the ability to write onto that system. So instead, he needs to externalize that and write it somewhere else. And in neuropsychological rehabilitation, that is one of the things that we do with patients. We ask them to externalize their memory by writing things down. I've had a patient who had a dictaphone and he spoke into it all the time, and then he would write it out later on. And we've even used camcorders, which are worn like a necklace, which are recording what the person is seeing, and then that is played back to them later on in the hope that they can remember it. So externalizing the memory is actually quite realistic.
You don't remember saying that.
Well, that's the thing. I have this condition.
A condition?
It's my memory.
Amnesia.
No. It's different from that. I have no short-term memory. I know who I am. I know all about myself. Since my injury, I can't make new memories. Everything fades. If we talk for too long, I'll forget how we started. And next time I see you, I'm not going to remember this conversation. I don't even know if I've met you before. So if I seem a little strange or rude or something, I've told you this before, haven't I?
Yeah, I don't mean to mess with you, but it's so weird. You don't remember me at all.
No.
We've talked a bunch of times.
I'm sure we have.
Well, what's the last thing you remember?
My wife.
What's it like?
It's like waking. It's like you just woke up.
In this scene, he's talking to the guy at the reception at the hotel or wherever it is, and he's talking about the condition of not being able to remember things. Now, generally speaking, they got it quite right in terms of if someone speaks for too long, he's not going to be able to remember it, and he has to repeat things over and over again. So he's had this conversation a number of times, and he can't remember what happened before. However, there is one thing that they get very, very wrong, and it's something that even people in the field of psychology get wrong, which is that he says that he's got no short-term memory. That's actually completely wrong. He has got a short-term memory, and short-term memory, for all of us, me, you, and Frank, is about 90 seconds long. It's basically what we can hold in current consciousness. So even what I started saying at the beginning of this sentence is already in long-term memory. What he's got a problem in is creating new long-term memories, because anything like what we talked about at the start of this video, what you did earlier this morning, etc., that has already moved into long-term memory. So that is one of the classic mistakes that's made by everyone, and people constantly say, I've got bad short-term memory, meaning that they can't remember what happened over the last couple of days. they actually mean that they've got a difficulty in creating new long-term memories.
You're gonna make it work. You kind of learn to trust your own handwriting. That becomes an important part of your life. You write yourself notes, and where you put your notes, that also becomes really important. You need like a jacket that's got like 6 pockets in it, particular pockets for particular things. You just kind of learn to know where things go and how the system works. And you have to be wary of other people writing stuff for you that is not going to make sense or is going to lead you astray. I mean, I don't know, I guess people try and take advantage of somebody with this condition. If you have a piece of information which is vital, writing on your body instead of on a piece of paper can be the answer. It's just a permanent way of keeping a note.
In the scene, he's talking about the fact that he's got to have a record of what he wants to remember, and he needs to create a system. And his particular system is a rather extreme one, which is of tattooing information onto himself. And that's not something I'd recommend, tattooing things onto yourself, unless it's something that you want to remember for the rest of your life. But the important thing is that it is important to externalize the information. And I think what he says about people taking advantage of someone with a poor memory, not necessarily amnesia, but just a poor memory, is actually quite accurate, because sometimes you find that older people whose memory is fading, other people can take advantage of them because they've forgotten what they've been told, whether they've been given them money, etc. So I think that thing about people taking advantage of someone with poor memory is actually somewhat accurate.
White male. First name John. Last name G for camel. Drugs. License plate. SG137IU. It's him.
In this scene, he's looking at the tattoos that he's drawn onto his body, and he's now finding the documentation that he used to write that information. Now, the interesting thing about this scene is that he actually did those tattoos from that same documentation. And so now all that's happening is that he's looking at the original piece of paper that he used to make the tattoo with. But when he looks at it, it's as if it's the first time he's seen it. And that's actually not unrealistic. I've worked with people with severe amnesia who have got no idea that something has happened before. So I've been talking to them about something, I go away for a few minutes, and when I come back, they don't know that they've even met me before. So that depiction of him seeing this information on his body, which initially doesn't make any sense, but then he sees the documentation, the driving license, passport, etc., and he starts putting 2 and 2 together, that's actually quite realistic. That in itself it doesn't make any sense, and then he has to remember by piecing it all together what it means.
Memory's unreliable.
Ah, please.
No, really. Memory's not perfect. It's not even that good. Ask the police. Eyewitness testimony is unreliable. The cops don't catch a killer by sitting around remembering stuff.
Right.
They collect facts.
That's not what I'm
They
saying.
make notes and they draw conclusions. Facts, not memories. That's how you investigate. I know. It's what I used to do. Look, memory can change the shape of a room. It can change the color of a car. And memories can be distorted. They're just an interpretation. They're not a record. And they're irrelevant if you have the facts.
You really want to get this guy, don't you?
I killed my wife. He took away my fucking memory. He destroyed my ability to live.
You living?
Only for revenge.
Well, then we'll get the bastard.
Where you staying? A discount in. I don't know what room. I haven't got my key.
Probably left it in your room.
This is actually a really good scene because in this one, he's talking about the fact that memory isn't reliable. And that's actually really true. Most people think of memory as being these facts that we store into our brains and then we pull out like a filing card of the information from that time. In fact, that's not how memory is. Memory is an interpretation. It's a reconstruction of what you thought happened. So when you try to remember your last birthday party, you're actually trying to remember what could have happened, and usually you're relatively accurate, but no one is 100% accurate. And we know this because there are patients with certain types of brain damage who create memories which are really bizarre, which didn't happen at all, and that's because their reconstruction has gone wrong. Now, he also mentions that eyewitness testimony is unreliable. That's completely true. There's a lot of work by someone called Elizabeth Loftus that has demonstrated that when we remember events like the scene of a crime, etc., people tend to forget things, and it's really easy to plant false information into someone's memory by just the use of certain words or phrases. And this is why it's really important in any criminal investigation not to just assume that what someone said is fact, but to actually triangulate towards it by using lots of different types of information. So memory is generally good and relatively reliable, but it differs from one person to another. So Frank and I, we've got really good memories, and I know some people who've got bad memories, but they don't have amnesia. So memory is generally reliable, but varies between people. And also, there are ways that you can distort memory. And so it's quite important that you realize that memory is not factual.
Don't see my key anywhere.
Oh, shit. This is the wrong room. You're in 304 now. I'm sorry, I fucked up.
This is not my room?
No. Come on, let's go.
Then why is this my handwriting?
This was your room, but now you're in 304.
When was I in here?
Last week. But then I rented you another room on top of it.
Why?
Business is slow. I mean, I told my boss about your condition and stuff, and he said try and rent him another room.
So how many rooms am I checked into in this shithole?
Just 2. So far.
Well, at least you're being honest about ripping me off.
Well, you're not going to remember anyway.
You don't have to be that honest, Bert.
Leonard, always get a receipt.
Oh, yeah. I'll write that down. Hey, what time is it?
1:45. Your room's...
So that's quite interesting. It's about the fact that someone can take advantage of him. And yet, what you see is that he does recognize some things. And I think that that's actually quite an important thing to remember about amnesia. It's not this, who am I? I can't read, I can't speak, etc. Memory is not like that, the way that sometimes Hollywood represents it. He does recognize his own handwriting, and maybe somewhere deep inside, he does recognize that this is his room. And we know that patients actually have what we call implicit or unconscious memories, where sometimes they do recognize something even though it doesn't reach conscious awareness. So they can have a feeling of familiarity, or kind of like what we call a tip of the tongue phenomena, where they kind of think that they know something but they're not sure about it. So that scene where he thinks, actually, I think I may have been in this room before, and maybe this guy is trying to rip me off, is actually quite accurate.
I'd just become an investigator when I came across Sammy. Mr. Samuel R. Jankus. Strangest case ever. You know, the guy's a 58-year-old, semi-retired accountant. He and his wife had been in this car accident. Nothing too serious, but he's acting funny. He can't get a handle on what's going on. The doctors find some possible damage to the hippocampus. Nothing conclusive. But Sammy can't remember anything for more than a couple of minutes. Can't work, can't do shit. The medical bills pile up. His wife calls the insurance company, and I get sent in. Now, This is my first big claims investigation, so I really check into it.
Can I get you some
Sammy can
coffee
think
or
just
something?
fine, but he can't make any new memories. He can only remember things for a couple of minutes.
This is Mr. Shelby.
He'd watch TV, but anything longer than a couple of minutes was too confusing. He couldn't remember how it began. I like commercials. They were short.
Sammy, it's time for my shot.
The crazy part was that this guy, who couldn't even follow the plot of Green Acres anymore, could do the most complicated things as long as he learned them before the accident, and as long as he kept his mind on what he was doing. Now, the doctors assure me that there's a real condition called anterograde memory loss, or short-term memory loss. It's rare, but legit. But every time I see him, I catch this look.
This is actually a really interesting scene because he is working as a medical investigator for someone who claims to have some sort of memory problem. There is an error in it that they talk about anterograde short-term memory loss. It's not anterograde short-term memory loss. It's called anterograde amnesia, which is a difficulty in laying down new long-term memories. So not short-term memories, new long-term memories. And as I said before, anything beyond a couple of minutes. Now, there are a lot of important facts in this scene. The knock to his head, it would have to had to been quite severe because the hippocampus, which is the area of the brain that is mentioned, is a horseshoe-shaped structure about that long, which is about deep around here, just within your temporal lobe, so the area around here. And that is the area that we know is memory central. And the reason that we know that is because of amazing work that was done in Canada with a patient who had severe epilepsy. The damage was in his temporal lobes, and when the hippocampus was taken out, they relieved his epilepsy, but he had major problems laying down new long-term memories. Now, so this patient could have amnesia, and he talks about the fact that he finds TV really difficult. He likes the commercials because they're quite short, can't remember any long things, etc. So that bit is true. Also, the fact that he can remember how to do things, and we know that that's actually true. The skills that a patient has before they became brain damaged, they still retain those. So therefore, if you knew how to drive a car before brain damage, you can remember how to do it after the brain damage as well. And that actually is quite important. And we've actually found that it's possible to teach new skills to people, and that can be used in rehabilitation. So the idea that he can remember how to inject the insulin into his diabetic wife's arm, that is true, because he can remember that skill of how to do it.
It's completely fucked because nobody believes you. Oh, it's amazing what a little brain damage will do for your credibility. I guess it's some kind of poetic justice for not believing Sammy. You know the truth about my condition, officer? You don't know anything. You feel angry, you don't know why. You feel guilty, you have no idea why. You could do anything, not have the faintest idea 10 minutes later, like Sammy. What if I'd done something like Sammy? I didn't tell you what happened to Sammy and his wife? She came to see me at my office. I thought she was just trying to catch me off guard, so I didn't tell her what I really thought, but I never said that he was faking. Just that his condition was mental, not physical. I found out later that she went home and gave Sammy his final exam.
Sammy, it's time for my shot.
She knew beyond a doubt that he loved her. So she found a way to test him.
Sammy, it's time for my shot.
She really thought she'd call his bluff. Or she just didn't want to live with the things she'd put him through.
Sammy, it's time for my shot.
It won't hurt.
She went into a coma and never recovered. Sammy couldn't understand or explain what happened. He's been in a home ever since. He doesn't even know that his wife is dead. I was wrong about Sammy, and I was wrong about his wife.
So this is quite a sad scene in which Sammy's wife thinks that she can test whether he's faking his amnesia or not by seeing whether he'll give her another insulin shot very shortly after he's given her a shot, and she changes the watch to see whether he does it. And what happens is that he keeps giving her more shots until she's in a coma. The thing is that the scene, although it's true at some level that a patient will repeat something over and over again, it's not true in terms of time frames, because it's literally like a couple of seconds. He goes out, and by the time he's back within like 5 seconds, she's changed her watch, etc., etc. That's way too quick. The memory would last for that amount of time. It would need to be about a minute and a half. But otherwise, yes, that's true. And this issue of people faking amnesia for memory compensation, financial compensation, etc., is actually true. And it's called malignant amnesia or compensation neurosis. And in fact, I've done some research in this area, because what we do is that we try to find out whether people are trying to fake amnesia by comparing them to how a real amnesia would perform. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that description from a neuropsychologist's perspective about what aspects of the film Memento were realistic or not. And generally speaking, I think that it's actually one of the best depictions of amnesia in film. There are a couple of things that they got wrong, but those are things that even some psychologists get wrong, so I think we'll give it to them. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed that. I'd be grateful if you liked this video, if you aren't already a subscriber, to subscribe, and also if you just click on the little bell symbol, that will notify you of whenever we create a new video to upload. If you've got ideas of new videos, then please put them on the comment section, because we're always looking for new ideas for videos. So thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this, and look forward to talking to you again. Bye.